What's going on, everybody? Love and light, Jason. Back in the car, back in the vehicle, right? But today is not a live. Today is a video. And it was a good topic that one of the followers, one of you beautiful beings, during the live asked me if I could do this video. And I was going to do it eventually, but, why not? The topic that I'm going to talk about is extremely relevant, especially in my life right now. But it is also relevant in all of yours. All right. So today's topic and what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try and keep it to, hopefully a decent time. But for me to fully envelop you guys in it, I do have to go back to my near-death experience. So today's topic is what he asked me, Vlad, is Jason, tell me how you conquered fear and guilt and feel no sin, which, remember, sin is simply a lack of love. That's an excellent topic because so many of you, when I started on this journey, Jason, you are so brave. Jason, I can't believe it. That is beyond frightening. That's scary, and I'm like, I didn't feel that way when I started out. But to give you the whole ensemble of how I came to that moment in time, I have to discuss some past things, right? So let's get into the topic. And again, the topic of today is, Jason, how did you fully surrender guilt and fear to Father? They want a detailed explanation. I can only tell you what works for me, guys. You are you, and you came here to work on you. So whatever it is that you need to do, you need to figure that out for yourself. But you can use me as a guide, as an example of how things work. Yes, you guys know that I had my near-death experience in 2020. I drowned in my own blood. Acute respiratory failure hypoxia. They pumped out 2.8 liters of blood from my lungs. That is the equivalent of 11.8 cups of blood. I drowned. Now, when I was out of my body and looking at this thing that I have no love for or use of anymore, meaning I don't acknowledge it. It is a very little to me, little, right? So as I was out of my body and actually seeing and feeling who I truly was at the moment, remember that when I was in constant light and that love, that was me. In essence, that was God that I merged with and became one with, right? Now I'm seeing through the walls. I'm seeing every blade of grass. I'm seeing through the trees. I'm seeing everybody dying and in the hospital, right? I am home. I knew where I was. I said, I'm home. Okay. This body meant nothing to me. All right. There was no fear. There was no guilt. And when I started to feel guilty, remember that we are guiltless. We are fearless. We are sinless. The more guilty I felt, the more love Father bestowed upon me until it was all gone. And when Jesus showed up, and people say, well, how do you know it was him? Because you never saw anybody. I instantly recognized everything. It was as if going home from work for you guys and walking into your house. That's what it felt like. I'm home. An instant knowledge, instant knowing. I could see the grass souls, the tree souls, everything. And I could feel the love. Right? I had no projection to get through, which is what this body is. These eyes are not eyes. They're lenses that they project outward what you internally see as yourself at home. So the world you see is a projection of how you see yourself. And to everybody, that is different. All right? So in that moment, there was no more fear or guilt. I was at peace, absolute peace. And yes, I did not want to come back, even though I begged Father not to let me die. It no longer meant I did not care. I did not care about my children. I did not care about this thing laying on the bed. I had no desire to come back. And that was as a lot of NDEers, well, you still have some things to do, right? I came back very depressed. I went through a very hard financial time, right? My car got repossessed. I had eviction notices. I couldn't buy food. And I fell into terror, actually, because I'm unable to work. I can barely walk. I'm still shitting myself. I can barely take a shower. I can barely shave, right? And somehow in all of that mess in 9 months, I still kept my apartment. Yeah, my credit score took a hit, but you know what? To this day and right now, I could give a rat's ass what my credit score is. I could care less about this physical, materialistic world. I do not care about any part of it, including this that I'm not wearing, but wrapped around. I want no part of it anymore. None. I don't see myself as a man. I don't see myself as a male. I am not Jason Janis. I never have been Jason Janis, nor will I ever be Jason Janis. I no longer look at anybody or a body at all. I see them as sinless, as I am sinless and guiltless and fearless. That is exactly how I look upon them. And you, my followers, when I am in my life, all right? So, you guys know of the out-of-body experiences that I've had. The first one was profound. It was 2 years later, 2020. I was very upset, very emotional, crying. Why couldn't you take me through the tunnel? Why couldn't I go home? Why was I in the hospital? Why couldn't, and I had the most profound experience. And here I am complaining to Father that it wasn't good enough, right? I wanted to go through the tunnel. I wanted to go home, which is really what it was. And in that moment, when I walked from my bedroom to my couch and I laid my head on the pillow, I was gone. I was torn out of my body, or I left my body at the speed of light. Yes, I entered the void. And when I mean the void, it is the void of that light, sound, everything. Except I was more alive there than the place that I just left. I'm traveling through this tunnel at the speed of light or faster. It was immensely fast. And out in what you could only perceive as distance was a sliver of light, white. It was so obvious to see. And it looked like it was about a half inch long, not even a half inch, like a quarter inch long, right? Just this little sliver of light. And then light started to permeate through the tunnel. It was grayish, actually, like a spiral, right? And all of a sudden, I felt the love again. And Father heard me. He heard me. I'm going home. And I'm like, good, and it basked in the love. And how long this took, I have no idea. Once again, same thing with my near-death experience. I was at peace. I was going home. I knew where I was. Father was with me. No other souls that I see, nothing else but the tunnel and light. Next thing I know, nothing but this most magnificent white has surrounded me. Everywhere was this beautiful light again. And it was loving and warm. And I was traveling closer and closer to it. And I got right up to it. And I mean, a nose hair away, nose hair. And then as soon as I got to it, I was almost going to say violently, but I came crashing back onto my body very hard, very fast. And I opened my eyes and I am back in my apartment, the one that I just left. And I just smiled and I was like, he's listening to me. He sees me, and I'm like, okay. And it was a slow uphill battle where fear began to be released. Not that I didn't have it. I was still learning my NDE. I was still trying to process everything that had happened. All right? Which was beyond anything you can ever comprehend. So I get up, look for a job, I was struggling with the day-to-day life of this bullshit physical reality of all these illusions that I've created for myself, all right? Because nothing here is real. Nothing that I'm seeing, nothing that I'm talking to here is real, nothing. And I'm trying to make sense of that in a physical form. All right. But then again, I realized you're not physical. You do not have a body. It's simply an illusion. So you go back and forth with fear and no fear, fear and no fear. Oh, you got to pay bill, And then I started to just say, Jason, you don't have bills. You don't have a home here. You don't have a job. You don't have a credit score. You don't have food. It's simply an illusion of time. And you somehow wrap this body of flesh around your mind and considered it real. Walled yourself off from God because you're scared, and you're living in this patch of dry Arizona desert where nothing will grow. It's brutally hot. The sand stings your eyes. And there you call home, and there you welcome death. And you welcome it with whatever it comes, because that is of the ego, right? But I didn't know this at the time, that my ego was starting to decline. I began to care less about my children. Not that I don't love them. I do very much. I didn't care about my job. I didn't care about my vehicle. I didn't care about paying bills. And to this day, it's even worse. All right. Then in 2023, right? No, let's go back to 2022, that same year. I had my first meeting at this job I did not want with what I said was Archangel Michael. Okay. I went into work around 5 o'clock in the morning where no one should have been. And then this being shows up out of nowhere, dressed in shitty clothes, ratty. And he goes, hi, smiling. He goes, I was just going in there to kind of clean up, and because he knew that's where I was going. Had this meeting with a being I just couldn't place, right? I'm feeling energy. I'm feeling something that I just couldn't place it. All right. And as we have this conversation, and ended up about me talking about my near-death experience. This was prior now to this was after my first out-of-body experience. So roughly within a few months. And as I'm talking, and he's just smiling at me with the most amazing, loving smile, right? And he switched positions, and he just kept looking up like that, like looking to Father. And I kept expressing love and more love and all of this, right? And then he says, your name is Jason, right? And I'm like, whoa. I never said my name. And he put his hand out to shake it, and the strength within his grip was mind-boggling, because he was smaller than me, and he had no muscle mass, but it was just an unreal strength. And he shook my hand, and I'm literally telling you, he could have crushed my bones into dust. That is how powerful he was. Immensely powerful, but all love. And he says, Jason, it was a pleasure to meet you. And I was like, I never said my name, right? And as he starts to walk out the door, he looks over his shoulder and he says, Jason, you'll hear from me again soon. He walks out the door. And I'm like, whoa, what's your name? I went to go out the door and there's nobody there. Gone. No sound, no way he could have gotten out. All doors are locked. Just like he showed up in the blink of an eye, he was gone. And I was like, whoa. I went upstairs, fell asleep. All right. Now it's 2023. I have two profound experiences there. Okay. First one was the DeVar Hamlin. The day DeVar Hamlin on the football field died of a heart attack. He got hit, and I remember sitting on my couch all by myself, and I remember him getting up, adjusting his face mask, and he was dead before he hit the ground. And that was the last thing I remember. I was out of my body, and I was in a magnificent world, a different realm. And again, a place that I felt very secure, very at peace, and a place that I knew very well. It was two suns, like in Star Wars at the end where you see the two suns, but it was a beautiful beach, and there was a being walking towards me. The ocean was off to my left, and I could feel the waves crashing in, and I felt a presence to my right. And I said, "Who are you?" And that being answered very lovingly and very quickly, "I'm Jeffrey. I've always been with you." All right? And I'm like, "Jeffrey?" I said, "I can't call you Jeffrey, man." I said, "That's the Toys R Us giraffe." I said, "Nah. How about John?" And then I call him Jeffrey again right away. So he's Jeffrey. I said, "Jeffrey, how many times have I been here? How many times have I died?" And this came again at the speed of light, instant. He says, the number was given, over 3,200. I said, "I died over 3,200 times." And he said, "Yes, you're ancient." Just like that. So serious, but yet so loving and so sure. And I was back in my body on the couch. And I'm like, now I look at the TV. The whole TV is dark, meaning the game was over. The stadium was dark and just had some commenters talking. Couldn't really see the field or anything. And I'm like, how long was I gone? And I'm like, what the hell does ancient mean? And then I went off on a tangent to find out what ancient mean. I said 3,200 times. Either I'm really shitty at what I'm doing, or there's a higher purpose that I've been called to. Okay? So I'm in a iron sharing group, guys. All right? A few weeks later, and we share our near-death experiences with those that want to know and others that have had them and want to express it, right? So I was called on and I said, well, I did have this experience a couple weeks ago. And there was a gentleman in there that I didn't know, but he instantly raised his hand. And I've come to find out his name was David Succi. So I would encourage you guys, when you're listening to this or watching this, if you don't know of him, look him up. His name is David Succi. And he raised his hand instantly. And he said, that's amazing, Jason. He says, and I have the answer for you right now. He said, the reason you were called ancient and the reason you have these many lives is, he said, you have been called on by Father, what you call a chosen one, to come and help the human race evolve, to learn, to figure out who they are. He said, you have been literally walking this earth for over 30,000 years or more. And he said, that is an amazing story. He said, I've researched over 150,000 NDEs and have talked to thousands and thousands of people. And he said, your story is no different, but the fact that God has been calling on you to help humanity evolve. I was like, and it felt right when he was telling me this. How do I know it was true? Because I felt it so deep in my soul. I felt it, and I said, "So I'm a chosen one." No wonder that number matched up, because a few comments said, I got a few nasty comments when I said I've died over 3,200 times, and a lot of people go, "Well, you must really suck. So you better read the Bible or whatever." And I'm like, I love you. I forgive you. Move on. All right. So that explained a lot for me. And that took a lot of fear out, to know that my Father has called on me. And that made sense after my NDE. Going to back up to that, right? When I said, you picked the wrong guy. Look, you picked the wrong person for this. I wasn't a nice person. No, you should have chose the Pope. You should have chose somebody worthy. That is when God literally spoke to me in my bedroom that I just left, that place. When I said, you picked the wrong person, and he had a little bit of a tood. I mean, it was beyond loving. Do not get me wrong. But there was a tint of frustration in there. And that is when he said, why not? You are my son. And all fear begins to dissipate when you hear your Creator talk to you. So we're going to fast forward now to later on in 2023, about 3 or 4 months later. I'm sorry about that, guys. But you want to know how I conquered my fear and my guilt and all of this. So I tried to date again. I'm like, I should probably date, Let's find love again, Jason, because I still have, and I think that this is really my last hurdle in this life, is to love another being again, a female that I would choose. I don't see bodies, but you know what I mean. And it didn't work out. But there was a profound meeting again with that same being. He looked different. His hair was different this time, and his beard was the same, but it was a different color. So hair and beard were a different color. It was a medium red instead of a brown. So we come out of having sushi, and this, what I would call a bum, was sitting by the back of my Jeep. And I walked up, and she's like, let's just ignore him. And I'm like, no. And I walked up to him, and he goes, hi. Just so loving. And again, I got this weird feeling like, what the hell is taking place? Something's not right here. And then she was standing by me, and he started talking about things about both of us that there's no way anybody could have known. And he immediately said, you love video games. And I'm like, well, I do. I love to play my video games. Right? And I said, and I'm like, yeah. And he says, you kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, money-wise. And I'm like, yeah, what else is new? Yeah. And then he looked, he said, I'm here to help get, my girlfriend, I'm going to a carnival walk. And that's where we were looking for a place together. And he looked directly at the woman I was dating. And he says, I'm here to help her get her divorce. And she freaked out because she was still married at the time, going through it. I'm going to help her get an attorney and all of this. And her face went absolutely white. And I looked at her, and she says, can I get in the car, please? Please, can I? And she ran in the car, right? Now, he was sitting on the curb, right? And I looked back at him, and he had a cane, and he was just wearing ratty old clothes that looked like they were from the 70s. They weren't really dirty, but they were just old and just out of place. Had a duffel bag sitting there, and he goes, it's really about the love. And he gave me a fist bump. And I'm like, yes. He goes, no, he says, it's really about the love. And he gave me a fist bump again, right? And I said, it is about the love. I said, that's all that matters. I said, and he's still smiling at me, this beautiful smile. He was a beautiful human. I mean, he wasn't human, but he was a beautiful being. And I felt nothing but love from him. Nothing but love. There was no fear. There was nothing but love. And I said, yes, you're right. I said, I had a near-death experience. I drowned in 2020. And his face got serious. And he goes, I know you did. And I'm like, whoa. Right? And I looked to see if she's okay. Right? Now he's sitting on the curb, those little curbs that, you pull into a parking space. So I look over to see if she's okay in this Jeep, right? And I turn back, and he's standing in front of me now. And I'm like, whoa. I didn't hear him get up. You hear people scuffle when they get up. There was no noise. And he said, I'm here because I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, he said, you know where I can get a drink? I said, the restaurant right there. And he said, we were talking a little bit, and he said, I could really use a drink. And look, the restaurant's right there. You could get a drink. He said, yeah. He said, I look like this because I blew all my money. He said, last month I drank $110,000. I said, you spent $110,000 on alcohol last month. You drank that much. And he goes, yeah. Look at me. I said, I don't judge. And he said, again, he said, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I said, yeah. He says, would you be okay with that? I said, with what? And he said, would you walk with me? And I said, sure. He said, could you help me? I picked up his cane. And he walked with a limp, but he didn't really use it. He's playing the part, you know, deceiving me. Filthy, filthy little man. I'm just kidding. So I picked up his bag and I'm carrying it. And he was this time he was walking ahead of me. So I'm looking at his back. And he said, would you be okay with that? I said, with what? I said, making 110,000 a year? I said, yeah. I said, I'm making $2,500 a month. 110,000? He goes, no, a month. I said, me making $110,000 a month. That's like $1.3 million a year. Yeah, I would be more than happy with it. Now listen, guys. Now you can go back and watch these videos. Now, his response in front of me, he said, that's great. And he says, would you be willing to relocate? I said, relocate? I said, sure, where? I said, for that kind of money? Yeah. And he says, how about Sacramento? And I went, California? Oh. I said, sure, for that kind of money? Yeah. And he's like, great. Really excited. He says, Jason, walk with me. So we're walking to when I'm going to drop him now off at a Texas Roadhouse in Waukesha, which was behind the sushi place. And as we're walking, he's kind of implementing what's going to be taking place, which I don't really remember much of. I was still caught up in, I'm going to be making that kind of money? Wow. And then I'm trying to justify it by living in California. And so we get into the restaurant, right? It's packed. People are going about their business, but nobody's paying attention to me in any way, shape, or form. Like not even turning their heads to acknowledge who walked in the door, nothing, right? So it means like the matrix has been glitched, right? And we are in our moment, our divine encounter moment. So he gets to the counter and we talk for a second and he says, Jason, it was a pleasure meeting you. And I said, Jason? I said, how the hell do you know my name? I said, you're Jason, right? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, now, now it's really bizarre. And now I'm getting really tired. Like, because we simply exist as energy. So we don't exist as body. So as we're communicating, it is literally we are communicating energy to energy, right? We're not having a body experience. We're communicating the way we would at home, right? I'm being drained of my energy. I was tired. So he said, Jason, you'll hear from me soon. And I'm like, all right, I got to get out of here. And I said, it was a pleasure meeting you. I gave him a pat on the shoulder. I said, I wish you well on your journey. And I started walking out the door, which was a ways back. So as I was walking out, I said, come on, really? I turn around. He's not standing there. Just the people in the restaurant. I'm like, okay, now I booked it. I mean, I ran to my Jeep. And I jumped in. She goes, what was that? And I was driving and I'm like, oh my God, that's the same person I saw in the bathroom stall at work. I said, that was Archangel Michael. She goes, I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. She goes, how did that happen? I said, that's the second time it happened to me now. The first time was at work. And we got back to my old apartment that I just left and crashed. She fell asleep for like 5-6 hours. I did for like an hour and a half. All right. But during all of this time, guys, fear started to diminish. I am being divinely guided into a new life. All right. My matrix is changing. All right. Money is now coming, security, abundance, love, because now I am choosing love. I know what I am. It is not a body. All right. And I am experiencing that. I began to meditate then. Took a while, but I began to meditate and I began to focus in on my new reality. Now, shortly after that, I began to go through what was my now ascension into the 5D. I lost my job. I began to lose massive amounts of weight, right? I began to get very sick. I mean, like throwing up. I mean, I couldn't eat more than a bite of a sandwich every 3 or 4 days. And that's all I could stomach. And that would generally come back up. I'd be in the shower holding on for dear life because I will all of a sudden start to spin and fall out or fall somewhere. It was a horrendously painful experience for 4 or 5 months. I mean, brutally painful. All right. I mean, I woke up in the middle of what I assumed was the night because it was dark, but I tried to roll over to the left. There was standing water on the side of me. So as I tried to roll over, ice cold water. And I mean, I was burning up, guys, burning up. I felt like I was 1,000 degrees. I tried to roll to the left, more water poured over. And I'm like, I'll just stay here, right? And what was taking place is my higher self, which is as warm as the sun. Like I told you in my near-death experience, I was as warm as the sun. It flowed through me like a river, right? So my higher self is hovering above me and I am integrating into the crystalline body. All right. So I'm changing from the carbon-based into the crystalline. So my DNA, my cells are being reformed inside me while I'm alive. And it is painful. My back hurt beyond belief. My sides, my hips, my joints were excruciatingly painful. I mean, I was in pain. Vomiting, sick, lost my job for 3 months. Nobody would hire me. Now I know why, because I'm ascending, right? And do I start to panic a little bit? Yeah. I got eviction notices again, right? I'm trying to find food, nothing to eat. And then I'm like, Jason, I'm applying for jobs and applying for jobs. And I came out of a job that I knew I wasn't going to get. And I got in my car. And before I got started, I said, I know what's taking place. I said, I get it. I said, but I still have to have a home and a job to pay bills in this dream. As much as I dislike it and do not want it, I need it. I need a job now. No sooner did I say that before I even pulled out of the parking lot, the job that I just left after 2 years, they called me up the next day. I was hired. Got caught up on my rent. Food started flowing in. Life took a great turn. Then in 2024, you know, I don't celebrate holidays anymore. Christmas is simply a state of mind. But this was Easter, and I said, you know what? I'm going to have a meal. I'm going to thank my Father. I'm going to thank Yeshua for his love for me. So as I was in the grocery store, I got a prime rib. I'm getting all the stuff, and I'm like, I need oil. I said, you know, I'm in the oil aisle. Now, when I walked into the store, which was the normal Meijer that I walked into for 5 years now, 7 years, there was a very young woman, I would say in her mid-20s, okay? She had a toddler in the cart, meaning like a 3-year-old, a small one, right? And that one was just fussing, making a fuss. Neither one of them looked at me. Neither one of them. It was odd, and I felt odd around them, all right? So I went in, started doing my thing, got my stuff. And as I'm hunched over in like a linebacker stance, I was about 15 feet inside the aisle. And all of a sudden I see something out of the corner of my eye, a black mass. And I turn around and I'm like, and I look over, I'm like, he goes, hi, are you interested in a Bible study? Now he was younger, completely different looking being, right? Now, and I'm looking there, how the did you just walk through the I was like, and then all of a sudden I'm looking around the aisles, right? There's that woman with the baby. They weren't there when I looked to see who the hell that was. Now they're there, right? Except this time they're like this. No movement, no talking, nothing. Nobody's coming down the aisles, on the outside of the aisles or into this aisle. Everything got shut down. Once again, the matrix glitched. Now this was Jeffrey. Just who I felt was Jeffrey. The other guy, I don't think was Archangel Michael. I think it could have been though, but I think it really was an ascended master working with me, because my timelines are now being diminished. I told you guys, I don't have very many lives to go. And he's talking about Bible study in the Bible, because I've been telling Father, I said, nah, Catholicism is going to go down there. Because I was upset about being lied to. And I said, I'm going to let people know who they are. And I said, I will not back down. I will not stop. So what this meeting was making sure that I'm going to follow through with what I was telling, what my manifestations were. And he said, well, what about the second coming of Christ? And I looked at him and I said, young man, I said, there is no second coming of Christ. I said, well, not in the way that you think of it. I said, so no, I am not. And then he walked in front of me. Now, as he walked in front of me to the other side, the mom and the baby, they were gone. Now, how did they leave in a grocery cart without making any noise? Just disappeared, right? And I'm like, okay, now something's really going on. And he's like, well, are you sure I can't? And I got up and I said, young man, I said, no. I said, I'm honored. I truly am, but no. I said, no, the Bible is garbage. It's garbage. It's a pile of crap. No. And he started walking away and he turned around and he goes, I hope you have a blessed Easter. And I said, you too, young man, thank you. And I went back into my football stance and I'm like, I look over, he's gone. There's no way he could have made it 30 feet within 4 seconds. I'm sorry, without making noise or running? Nah. Gone. Okay? Then the last event that took place that I told you guys about during my live, I came home from work on a Friday and my whole house was torn apart. I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, between 1 and 3. It's pitch dark. I take a shower in the dark. I make my bed in the dark. I shave, everything. I sit on the couch in the dark. I meditate. I try and get some sleep. Went to work, came home. All the lights are turned on in my house. When you open up my door, there was a computer table there. That computer chair was pulled out and turned to the left, facing the patio. My living room light was on. All the pillows, blankets, this beautiful guy here, he was thrown on the ground or on the couch. And I'm like, the kitchen lights are on, and I feel, I don't want to say scared, but it was like, and I walked down the hallway. The second bedroom, the whole bed was completely torn off. All the sheets, bottom sheet, the bed sheet, the hugging sheet, all torn off, pillows thrown all over the place, sheets all over the place. And I'm like, I go into my bedroom lights on. My bed had been torn halfway down, pillows thrown all over the place. And I'm like, what the? And I got a weird feeling. And I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe you didn't lock the door. And I'm like, Jason, your iPad, your $1,800 iPad is right here. Your 3,000 brand new computer's right there. Your TV is, 63-inch flat screen. Your snake. I said, you have $10,000 worth of guitars, value-wise. Nothing's touched. And I said, you unlocked the deadbolt and the other lock. And I said, okay, this is a message. This is a huge message. And now I understood. 4 months later, the meaning of this came crystal clear while I began to move. Remember, they raised my rent so much that I couldn't afford to live anymore. And what am I going to do? I tried for a month to find jobs, interviews, everything. I filled out applications for rental places and everything. Nothing got back to me. Nothing. Nobody got back to me. And I sat on the couch. I said, well, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, Phoenix. And that decision was made instantly. I let my landlord know I will not be, the end of the month, as I will be out on the 25th. I said, I wish you the best of luck. And then as I started packing things up, it became crystal clear that while I'm trying to load all of my life into this pod, I'm like, what was the word that popped into my head? Not liquidation, but getting rid of your life, right? Because that's what this was, a cleansing. And then everything that I packed so carefully, toasters, pots, pans, dishes, everything, I began to throw everything out. Everything got thrown out. I kept my guitars, a couple paintings. I kept my couch, my bed, some guns that I have, some clothes, and a couple things when my kids were really little, made stuff for dad. Other than that, everything got thrown out. I threw out 50 years of my life, right? It made absolute sense why they trashed my place, because they're saying your new life is about to begin. Your new life is going to be chaotic. It's going to get thrown up in the air, okay? Now I packed up and moved. All along the way, I'm getting angel numbers. I told you, and when I was in Colorado, I filled up with gas. The gas pump stopped at $33.33. Ladies and gentlemen, you're being divinely guided and protected. You are right where I was meant to be. And while I was driving, while I was left, when I tell you I left both my children, I left all my grandchildren, I left everything I have ever known. And not once did I fall into fear. Not once did I regret the decision that I was about to make. And as I was driving there, doing all those things for you guys, not once did I end up in fear. Went through Arizona, got into the Phoenix area, right? Got into the hostel. Well, guess what? I was there a week, and then we got evicted. Imagine that. And I kept, tried to make sense of it. That was the non-physical saying, look, pal, you don't belong in Arizona. We did not agree to Arizona. We agreed to Sacramento, right? I said, oh, I'll go camping. It's cheap. Well, I made it there 4 days. And on the fourth day, they got me so violently sick and in excruciating pain that when I went to bed, I said, okay, you don't want me here. I thought I could change the deal. No. The moment I said, I will go to Sacramento in the morning, all the pain stopped. The headache was gone. I quit throwing up, and the groin pain felt like there was a horse kicking me there every 5 minutes, was instantly gone. I fell asleep, got up, stood naked in the middle of the road because there was hardly any campers there, washed up in my little pot, drove to Sacramento, and here I've been. I got run out of Sacramento because I'm not allowed to sleep in my truck there. All right, I'm out of money. I looked at my checking account. I'm down to $200. Okay, what's 200? It costs $6 a gallon in gas. A half a tank of gas is $100. I'm done, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm here. Got run out of there. And then I found this place 30 miles away, which has been beautiful. It's a truck stop. And there's a Jack in the Box right here, which is a cute little restaurant and burger place. I can go to the bathroom there. I can fill up my water jugs there. And I can sleep in the parking lot. And through generous donations from not only college friends, through a follower of mine that checks in on me all the time, sends me money. Money has been flowing into me without even remotely close to having a job. Every time I tried to find a job down here, guys, it has been instantly stopped. No. I cannot find work. Even in a field that I worked in for almost 15 to 20 years of my life, nobody will hire me. There's a reason, guys. I began to fall into fear again by applying for those jobs, right? I'm not meant to work there. Why am I here? Your new life is going to begin. So while I'm in what you call the void, the one life now ended. I'm no longer in Wisconsin. I'm no longer in Waukesha. I no longer have a job. I am now 2,000 miles away from everything that I have ever known in my life. And here I sit in California where 2 years ago, the angel said, or my guide said, how about Sacramento? What does that mean? That money is now going to be coming in. But what is taking place right now is that they are arranging the new life. I have to sit here and wait. Now, that is disconcerting because you're watching people in their imaginary life going about their day, going about to work, getting money, doing this, going that. And I'm sitting here going, la, 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 la. I said, and I began to fall into fear. I began to apply for jobs. And what happened during that time? They said no. My career, what I'm doing now, my YouTube channel, my website, public speaking, it's all going to take place. This money is coming in. And I'm not talking a little abundance. Now, I'm talking massive amounts of money is coming. But now they are planning this right now. I am here, and this is where it's going to take off. So Vlad, when you asked me how I overcame fear and guilt, this is how. I've been divinely guided. I have surrendered to the Holy Spirit. I have surrendered to my Father. I have forgiven Jesus. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have forgiven Jesus because I projected my unconscious guilt and fear onto him that he was murdered for me. Wrong. He did not die for me. That was not his intention. He was simply murdered for what he was teaching. His resurrection was the atonement to show you, look, guys, you're no different than me. Look, I can do this. So can you. You're not a body. Look, I created a new one. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the itching. They're with me. It's my throat and third eye, the love chakra. So sorry about that. I'm itching. My sacral chakra is itching too by my abdomen. So that is fear. I told you guys in my last video, the live, I have no use for this body. It is useless for me. It is little, minute, picute. I don't want to be attached to it. I want no part of it. I don't see any of you as a body anymore. I see you as sinless. I see you as perfection. I see you as guiltless. No different than me. I don't fall in love with your body. If I were to be in a relationship, when I was talking about my twin flame, our connection was deep. We really didn't look at our bodies. Yes, we used our bodies to make love and be loved, but we weren't worshiping them. We weren't idolizing them. We were in love with our true essence, our souls meeting again, or me finding the other half of my true self, right? And that is how I overcame fear, guys. And guilt. I've done nothing wrong. Yes, my near-death experience helped me with that. But all those experiences that I just went through with you guys confirmed all of that. All right? I'm here where I'm meant to be. Something is going to happen massively big. I am just in the waiting game. I'm in between lives, the void, a hole, a gap, a waiting period. Because they are now forming my new reality. Even though it's going to be new, it is still an illusion. I am just changing it from a nightmare to a beautiful dream. I still know it as an illusion. Everything that I see, everything that I experience is simply taking place in my mind back home in heaven. Nothing here is real. So that is how I got rid of my fear and guilt. It's not real. When you listen to this video, which is timeless, whoever runs across it, you're not looking at me. You're projecting my image onto you. All right? And if you see a body, then you are sin. Meaning there's a lack of love. You don't believe in who you are. Then you're going to project that unconscious guilt and fear onto your own body, making you ill, sick. All right? It's as simple as that, guys. That is how I overcame my fear and guilt through all of those progressions that I talked about, from my near-death experience to my out-of-body experiences to those meetings with my guides and Jeffrey and Ascended Masters. And as I told you, that time is not linear, right? It's like this, like the layers of a cake. So as they're coming in, those masters, right? They're knocking out lives and experiences that I don't need to do anymore. So I am becoming what you would call, what Jesus is, enlightened. I don't have maybe but 1 or 2 lives left. And not to say that they're going to be easy, because if Father's choosing me, I am choosing difficult lives so I can overcome these obstacles to help you guys, to teach you who you are. It is imperative, all of you, that you figure out who you are in the now. Your past is nothing but pain. Your future doesn't exist. What is existing in all of eternity is right now. That's it. So in the moment of now, live your life to its fullest extent. This is a beautiful gift we've been given. And in the process of me getting out of that little, like I told you in my live, that in the infinite grandeur of space, we took this little tiny speck and we put up a wall around it, and it's now a desert barren of anything, hot, dusty, the sand stings our eyes, and we built a wall off to say, fuck you to God, even me, right? And I'm in the process of pushing past that illusion, say, oh no, that's not me, right? Because now what I've told you with what I'm going through, and this is where I'll end the video, is I'm in my awakening, what you guys call a dark night of the soul, so to speak. And all that truly means is the death of the ego. I am no longer feeding the ego. I am no longer believing in this body, and I have nothing to do with it. I have no sexual desire anymore. That's because I told the Holy Spirit to take it away. So when you guys have fantasies, when you masturbate, right, ladies, guys, when you projecting something, those are all illusions that need to be forgiven, right? I haven't had an erection and I can't even tell you how long. I don't care. It means nothing to me. Right? Now, if I'm in a partner, I won't look at her as a body. I will see her as a beautiful being, a sinless being, a guiltless being. And I will be able to use what God then gave us as our sexual energy. Energy. I didn't say body. I said energy, which is divine. It is pure. And you are then using your body in the correct way to be intimate, to make love, to reach home, which was given to you by Father. And that is how I have done it, Vlad. It is through those steps. It is through knowing that I am divinely protected and safe, that there's nothing going on, that I am creating my own reality. Sorry, guys, my face, they're making me itch bad. So what is that, your third eye and throat chakra right here? Like last night, I was itching my throat and the top of my head. It's nuts. But anyway, I went far beyond what I wanted to in this video, but it's a good video. So all of you who are watching this video and wanted to know how brave I am, how I did it, how amazing this is, that is simply how I did it. There was no fear involved. None. In any way, there's no fear right now. Am I bored out of my mind? Yeah. But I've been told to rest. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit here in the shade or find shady places, and I'm going to sit and sleep. That's it. Now, all of you are in the same position, okay? All of you, or many of you, are unhappy in your lives, whether it be a job, right? Whether it be your marriage, or, you're in a relationship that you're just miserable and unhappy with. That's because you are projecting your fear and unconscious guilt not only onto yourself, but onto that being that is across from you, that you see as a body. And you are causing yourself nothing but pain, and that is all that will come to you, is pain. So if you're not happy in any part of your life, fix it. There's nothing you need to feel guilty about. There's no shame, there's no guiltlessness, and there's no fear. If you're unhappy in your marriage, walk out, leave. I left my children, I left my grandchildren. And in reality, if we're all one with the Father, meaning, as I told you many times before, I am God. There is no doubt in my mind. None. I will not ever back down from that. You are all God. As Jesus said in the Bible, because many were standing around, is it not written in your law? I said, you are God's. Okay? That means they're not my children. That means they're God too. But that being chose me, loved me enough to enter into this relationship. So I'm not worried about it. There's no guilt in me anymore. None. My decision was very easy. It was instant, and I was gone. And I want you to live your lives that way. Guilt-free, sinless. Do not look at another, what you would call person, and see a body. See them as sinless, as perfection, as beautiful. That is how you evolve really quick, right? So find your happiness, guys. Find your peace. Find your love, because you are divinely protected and you are safe. Go live your lives, but do it in love and forgiveness, all right? As I love all of you so very much, and all of you that have followed me, that have been helping me out financially, so I can get food, so I can put tank of gas in. I am beyond honored. I am beyond grateful for every single one of you. I love you with all my heart. And I am truly honored for all of you that have stepped up and helped me financially, help support this channel financially. I am truly beyond grateful. And from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you, and that I love you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys Friday night. I love you guys. Bye.